Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar for Round 2, Stream 1, Regional Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund. We're calling in to you this morning from Sydney. I think we have around 20 to 30 people on the other end around regional New South Wales. I think there's people from Dubbo, Wagga Wagga. Hello to everybody from Inverell. My parents-in-law are from Inverell, so special welcome to you guys. I think we've got people from Evans Head and all the way around regional New South Wales. So great to be with you this morning to chat through this very exciting opportunity. Firstly, from all of us here, congratulations on having your project shortlisted. This is a $50 million round of the Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund to join the whole suite of other funding which is coming through from the Regional Growth Fund of the government, around $1.6 billion overall. My name's Jonathan Wheaton. I'm the Acting Director of the Economic Activation Programs here with the Department of Premier and Cabinet. At the table, at the hot seat this morning, we have Suzanne Gillam, who is the Program Manager for the Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund. We also have Mark Finlay, who's the Acting Associate Director of our Investment Appraisal Unit. Mark's a very important person. He does and leads the full cost-benefit analysis for all the projects when they come into you, a critical component of the assessment process. So in terms of what we got from this stream of funds in applications, we've got around 60 applications through to us. We've had 22 projects shortlisted for funding. The original request was for over $400 million. So it was quite a competitive assessment process to get through to this stage. So congratulations once again. I'm going to pass over to Suzanne, who's going to run through the information today. The last thing I will say is, as we go, please prepare your questions, get ready to have those, and there'll be an opportunity towards the end where I've got an iPad here. If you can type them into your screen in whatever way is presented to you, and like a magical beam from regional to Sydney, they come up on my iPad here, and I'll ask Suzanne and mark the questions on your behalf. So over to you, Suzanne.
Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Welcome to the webinar from me as well. And as well, I'd like to reiterate Jonathan's congratulations on being shortlisted for Stream 1 of Round 2 of the Regional Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund. So what we'd really like to focus on this morning is how to construct your detailed application, what sort of information to include, and how to put your best foot forward and put forward as strong an application as you can to give yourself the best shot of securing some funding. Regional Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund in Round 1 and in Round 2 is very competitive, so we'd like to help you make sure you have a shot at funding. So as you can see on the slide, we'll go through a bit of a recap of the criteria, eligibility and assessment criteria for RGETF. We'll talk about detailed applications and how to prepare your detailed application, what sort of information to include, talk about how you can really highlight the benefits of your project, what sort of things to avoid doing, and how to capture the data for the economic appraisal. And we're very lucky to have Mark Finlay from DPC's Investment Appraisal Unit with us to help with any questions that you might have about the economic appraisal. And then we'll talk quickly about a couple of other things like privacy and confidentiality and what happens next. And then, as Jonathan said, we'll have time to cover any questions and answers that you might have about the process. So as a recap, the Regional Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund is administered under Restart New South Wales. The Department of Premier and Cabinet works closely with Infrastructure New South Wales in administering this fund. When you're putting forward an application and considering what's RGETF about, it's important to remember its purpose, and you can see that on the screen here. So the purpose of Regional Growth, Environment and Tourism Fund is to increase tourist visitation by investing in regional environment and tourism infrastructure, particularly focusing on fixed assets that will grow and further diversify regional New South Wales economies. So the economic focus of the fund is really important, and that's why your applications need to demonstrate that they meet such things as a benefit cost ratio above 1 and so on, because that economic criteria is really important to helping achieve the fund's purpose. RGETF, as all restart funds do, have an overall public benefit purpose as well. The purpose that the government's trying to achieve through these funds is to invest in public infrastructure that brings economic benefits both to your region and New South Wales as a whole. So a bit of background on RGETF for those of you that don't know, or a reminder for those of you that were around at the time. The fund opened in April 2017. It was massively oversubscribed at the time. I think it might have started as a $50 million original round, but it quickly became bigger, and $110 million was committed to about 32 projects across the state. We're now into round two with $100 million. At the moment, $100 million available in two streams. Today, we're focusing on stream one, which is for regionally iconic tourism activation projects. So every now and again, we'll probably call that RITA because it's easier than saying them, the four words. Regionally iconic tourism activation projects are projects that require at least $5 million funding from the New South Wales government. And the way to think about it is that they're major projects that are going to draw people into the region and potentially help put that region on the map and certainly create economic benefit. So overall, what we're hoping for RGETF in general, but particularly from the RITA stream, is projects that will draw tourists from outside the region, encourage them to stay longer and encourage them to spend more money. We're a bit stuck on no, did we go through? Yep. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've got up to $50 million available in stream one, which is the stream that you're applying for. Of course, it's only by invitation, so you've all had your invitations on the basis that you submitted a successful expression of interest a couple of months ago. We've got a minimum grant amount of $5 million, but no maximum. These are some of the key eligibility criteria. Projects must be located in an eligible local government area. So applications from Wollongong, Greater Sydney Metro and Newcastle aren't eligible, and there's a map on our website that shows the regions that are eligible and those that aren't. All applications need a minimum 25% co-contribution of the funding amount requested. So try to remember that, because that's the mistake that we pick up reasonably often. It's a minimum 25% of the funding requested. An exemption is available for disadvantage where an LGA has strong claims to disadvantage, and we can talk about that a little bit further on, but in general the expectation is that applicants co-contribute at least 25%. Applicants must be from an eligible organisation, so put bluntly that's council, community groups registered as incorporated organisations or non-government organisations. We'll talk a little bit more about the economic criteria later on, but all applications need to achieve a benefit to cost ratio above 1. In terms of the project type, remembering that the purpose of RGETF is for public benefit, so projects must be for new or enhanced public infrastructure that's either on public land or private land where there's a clear public benefit. So about the detailed application stage, it's really important to remember the detailed part of the detailed application. It's really important to include full evidence and background information to support the claims that you put forward. And again, I guess I'd like to reiterate the competitive nature of RGETF. The fund was heavily oversubscribed in the first round, and we're going to be in a similar position for this round. So even thinking about it, even though we've shortlisted about 22 applicants and invited them to submit a detailed application, when you're talking about $5 million minimum per project, it ups the stakes in terms of the competitiveness. So we've got eligibility criteria, we've got assessment criteria, and I'll talk through the assessment criteria in a little bit. But remember that not only do you need to sort of pass go by meeting the eligibility criteria, you need to have a really strong ramp up your claims on the assessment criteria to compete as well as you can against the other applicants who are also submitting in the stream. So the more information that you submit, the better, and the more data and evidence that you submit to support your case, the better for us as well. So we really encourage you to do your planning, do your research, have good cost estimates, have good research to help support the strategic claims that you make so that you're putting through a thorough and comprehensive application. So this slide lists some of the critical components that you need to include in your detailed application that allow us to both assess your application, make sure it meets the criteria, and to help make sure that the business case stacks up and it's got all the details there to support your claims. There are 4 key criteria under RGETF, and this matches restart criteria. So those are strategic, economic, affordability and deliverability of the project. Thinking about the strategic criteria, again, we come back to the purpose of Regional Growth Environment and Tourism Fund. The purpose is to increase tourist visitation by investing in regional environment and tourism infrastructure, focusing on fixed assets that will grow and further diversify regional economies. Economic benefits, remembering that this is an economic funding program, we want to see that applications are going to deliver jobs and economic growth as a principle. And in relation to the particular application or project, we need to calculate as best as possible, or we'll need to calculate that the project's going to achieve a benefit to cost ratio above 1 to show that it's likely to deliver jobs and economic growth and productivity in the region. We'll look at affordability. So in affordability, it's looking at is the project financially viable into the future, taking into account, all of the costings, all of the costs that it's going to cost you to maintain the infrastructure over the future years. Also, is the project affordable? Have you got your costings right? So if you apply for $7 million to deliver an $8 million project, is that the right amount of money that you need to actually deliver the project in the end? And in terms of deliverability, kind of looking at things like, do you have the adequate resources? Does the project management team have enough background and skill to deliver the size of the project that you're talking about? Deliverability is probably also things like programs and project management plans and risk and that kind of thing. So unlike the expression of interest, detailed applications are just that, they're detailed, and you need to provide as much information, financial forecast, asset management, and data as possible. So you can see here we've got the little picture from our website of some information on how to prepare a business case, and I'd really encourage everybody to have a look on DPC's website. You can see the link on the slide here, and we also included that in the invitations that we sent you after your application was shortlisted. Really encourage you to have a look on DPC's website and equip yourself with information about what kind of stuff you need to include in the detailed application. We would prefer that you submit your detailed application in the business case template. That's also on our website. That's not mandatory. But if you do use your own kind of business case template, please make sure that it covers all of the fields that are in the template that we have on our website. One of the things to think about when you're putting forward your application is to support your assumptions with evidence and data. So if you're predicting that there's going to be a certain outcome, either by visitation or another benefit, strategic or economic, through the project, then you need to support that assumption with evidence and data. Really describe the project so we have a really clear understanding of what it is and what benefits is it going to deliver. I'd like to talk a little bit more about affordability and deliverability, because that is an area where some applications might not represent themselves in as best a light as possible. I'd like to remind everybody that funding for RGETF is for the capital investment of the project only. It's just for the capital costs. It's not for ongoing operational or other maintenance. It's not for feasibility studies to do something unrelated in the future. It's really for the capital costs of the project that you say that you will deliver if the government gives you the money that you're requesting. Affordability, in terms of affordability, we will also cover whether you've adequately costed the project. I sort of mentioned that briefly before. So if you're applying for X amount of money, is that enough to actually make sure that the project will be delivered and it won't kind of break down halfway, or you won't need more money to finish the project off? So is it costed appropriately? Have you factored in appropriate contingency or an allowance for escalation and so on? In terms of affordability, there's another section. You need to show that you'll be able to manage the infrastructure into the future. So when we assess the application, we'll look at your financial position, we'll look at the ongoing costs of the project that the project will take to manage, and that the infrastructure will cost to manage over the future, and assess that the project is affordable for you to maintain as well. In terms of deliverability, the key question, I suppose, is can you deliver the project? how close is it to being deliverable? So is it actually investment ready? Or, if it's something that's going to take 5 years to get various approvals or planning for, it's unlikely to be deliverable from our point of view. So make sure that you've included information, have a planned out all of the various approvals and so on that you know that you need to do, and tell us how long you think that's going to take. And that helps us see that you've turned your mind to those matters, and we get a sense that the project is investment ready and is likely to be deliverable. And then there's the other stuff. So do you have an adequate program? Do you have an adequate project plan? Do you have resourcing? Do you have risk plans, and so on? In terms of the both affordability and deliverability assessments, DPC's investment appraisal unit will look at affordability from the context of, are you in a good enough financial position to maintain the infrastructure? We also get expert advice from Public Works Advisory on affordability and deliverability. They apply their expertise of construction and project management to help us understand the claims that you've put forward. So really make sure that you've done your research and have that all well supported. So I know I've said it before, but it's probably worth saying again. Remember that RGETF, particularly in this stream, is a very competitive process. So when you think of competitive process, obviously make sure that you've got a holistic and fulsome business case, but also make sure that you really hone in on what benefits is your project going to bring. So when you think of benefits, you might want to talk about what opportunities are you taking advantage of? Are there natural endowments in your region that you'd like to activate or further advantage from by building this particular piece of infrastructure? What problem could your project be addressing? Is your project the solution to a problem, or is it going to enhance an already existing competitive advantage that your region has? Would the project bring additional benefit through avoided costs or cost savings? Would it bring new employment? Certainly needs to bring new visitation, or would it bring new visitation if those are the claims that you're making? And who will use the facilities because of the investment? So make sure that you really highlight the project benefits. And when you're doing that, remember that the regionally iconic tourism activation stream is about major tourism projects, so that will bring people, help people, encourage people to stay longer and encourage them to spend more money in the region. Make sure that in your business case you've included the qualitative benefits and you've really made your best case on how your project might be advancing whole of government or local strategic plans. Make sure that you and economic benefit, and make sure you back that up with quantitative benefits in the data sheet. So quantify your qualitative claims wherever you can. That's quite a mouthful. There are various resources available that we'd really encourage you to use. So that you contact your destination networks for destination management plans, use data available from Tourism Australia to really support the case that you're making. So I've got things here, things to avoid. I'll probably make it a do list rather than a don't list. You can see the don'ts on your screen. I'll talk through what's nice for us to see. Be really clear and purposeful in your application. So define the project, define the value, convey that in its best light, and then really talk through those detailed plans of how you're going to deliver that benefit that you're claiming your project has. Some common errors that we've seen are some applications mix up capital and non-capital costs. So make sure that you don't do that. Be really clear on your co-contribution. Co-contributions, the required co-contribution of 25% needs to be a cash contribution. In-kind might be nice to have, and you're very welcome to mention that, but in terms of your co-contribution, to meet the requirement, it needs to be cash. So please make sure that you make that clear. And something that would be really great for you to avoid doing is avoid there being inconsistencies in the data. So make sure that the costings and data provided in your business case match the costings and data provided in your data sheet. Back to the do's. Be realistic and appropriately detailed about the claims that you make. So I guess a motherhood statement is well and good, but that in and of itself isn't going to be any use unless it's well supported and realistic. Make sure that you've got evidence and data to support your claims. make sure that you've got appropriate cost estimates and detail on how the project will be funded. Focus on the why, I guess, a little bit as well. So tell us why you've chosen the option that you have. In the business case template that's on the DPC website, we ask you to talk through scenarios. So that's very helpful in understanding why the project that you're putting forward is the best one for your region at this point in time. And make sure that the application really strongly articulates the strategic alignment for the project. So in terms of strategic alignment, we're looking at a few things. We'll look at how the project aligns with your local government area plans or plans in your local government area. We'll look at how the project aligns strategically with key plans that relate to the Regional Growth Environment and Tourism Fund, so the Visitor Economy Industry Action Plan and your local destination management plans. And then we'll also look at how the project might align more strategically with other New South Wales government priorities, such as the regional economic development strategies. So make sure that you really think more broadly about the strategic benefit of the project and fully articulate that. The economic appraisal is my least favourite part to talk about because it's my least area of expertise. So we're very lucky to have Mark Finlay here who will answer any questions that you might have, probably because I haven't covered it in this section. So what's important though is to really make sure that you put the right information in your data sheets and submit your data sheets. We have had a few applications recently that have submitted that haven't included the data sheet, and that's really important to submit that by the required time frame. The Department of Premier and Cabinet will undertake the economic appraisal of your application, so please don't feel the need to submit your own cost-benefit analysis because we will do ours anyway. So I guess some key things that you need to focus on to provide the right data for the economic appraisal are the funding for the project. So what funding are you applying for? Are there various co-contributors, and please articulate those. And please make sure that you are clear that where there's a co-contributor, that it's a co-contributor and you only list co-contributors in the in-kind section of the data sheet. You obviously want to include project costs, so capital expenditure such as property, plant and equipment, and those critical components of the capital aspect of your project. Remember that operational costs aren't eligible for RGETF funding. But of course you have to outline with detail the operational expenditure for maintaining and operating the running of the asset to help us understand whether you can whether that's feasible and whether we use that to determine whether your project meets affordability and deliverability. And of course, Regional Growth Environment and Tourism Fund visitation data is really important, so you please make sure that you include that and refer to reputable sources to support your visitation claims. You can include any revenue that your project's going to bring if that's appropriate. So I guess as a recap, use the data sheets provided, make sure you submit them on time, make sure that it's good quality data, and then we'll undertake the economic assessment of the project. So a reminder, the Regional Growth Environment and Tourism Fund is a Restart New South Wales fund. It's administered under Restart New South Wales by Infrastructure New South Wales, and the Department of Premier and Cabinet works in close collaboration with Infrastructure New South Wales to deliver this fund. Just like to assure you that remind you that all information provided as part of your application will remain confidential, but is subject. It's a government program, so it is subject to the Government Information Public Access Act. So if there's any information in your application that you particularly consider commercial in confidence or that is particularly sensitive, please mark that as confidential, noting that government applications are subject to GIPA. So what happens next? Remember that detailed applications need to be submitted on time. For probity reasons, we can't accept late applications, and please make sure that your application includes the business case, the complete business case, the data sheet and any supporting documents that that you'd like to submit. Please submit your documents in separate documents. It's not PDF'd and wrapped up into one document, because that makes it about 200 pages that we need to wade through, and it's really hard to find the important information. Applications will be assessed by a number of parties. We'll have DPC programs team looking at things like eligibility and other criteria. Our investment appraisal unit will undertake cost-benefit analysis. DPC will take on advice from other agencies that may have expertise in the particular project, and we will engage Public Works Advisory for advice on the costings and scope of the project to help us understand whether it's deliverable and affordable. Applications will then be considered by a senior officer group who will make recommendations to the Regional Independent Assessment Panel, which is managed by Infrastructure New South Wales. The Regional Independent Assessment Panel, REAP, will then provide recommendations to Infrastructure New South Wales. Infrastructure New South Wales is an independent statutory authority, so they will then review those recommendations and provide their own recommendations to government. Government is the final determiner of any funding through this program, so that's important to remember that various recommendations are made, applications are rigorously assessed, and then funding decisions are made by government. So that's it for the sort of information download on round 2, stream 1 of the Regional Growth Environment and Tourism Fund. I hope that was helpful.
So I'll just wrap it up for the day. I guess thank you very much for linking in with us this morning from wherever you are in regional New South Wales. Thank you to Suzanne and Mark. I was a bit harsh on Mark. They don't sit in a dark room. I'm joking. They do have windows, our economists, but they do
every now and again.
Every now and then they come out from hiding, and doing their their world of Excel spreadsheets. No, thank you to Mark and Suzanne for running through the information today. Thank you to everybody who's linked in to the webinar this morning. The next steps are, I guess, enjoy Christmas. Keep preparing your business case. Again, I'll reiterate, they are due now on Friday, the 1st of February, and we'll confirm that in writing and update the website really soon, which is really good news. All the best with your applications. Thanks again for linking in, everybody, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you.